welcome to NBA Tip-Off Tuesday edition. It's Tuesday, August 18th, and we are live as we are every weekday, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, right here on WagerTalk TV. I'm your host, Steve Merrill, and I'm joined by my NBA experts, as always, Teddy Covers, Rob Vino, Tony Finn, Ski Prophet. And I'll tell you what, guys, there's some red-hot cappers here. I know I cashed my 5% last night. I know that, Tony, you also won in the same game with the Clippers. Yeah. Teddy, I know you've just been on a monster run in the NBA restart. We'll get to that in a moment. But, hey, we got some live in action, so let's jump right into it for the viewers that are watching us live right now. The hell yes Orlando Magic. They are who we thought they were against the sleepless Bucks, I guess we could say. Checked this earlier. The Magic are up like 12. They're now up by 10 at halftime. So we got some halftime action. Teddy, I'll throw it to you. Magic up by 10. What are you looking at in this game?
I'm not doing anything at halftime, which means I'm not taking Milwaukee minus the spot at halftime. The Bucks haven't looked right at any point since the restart. They just really didn't look right in the first half of this ball game. And as we see repeatedly in the NBA, the stars sit, the other team lets down, the markets adjust, and the team with the sitting stars has other guys who step up. That's happened so far today. In the first half, I wouldn't bet against that in the second half either. I have no action on the game, but I sure wish I had some Orlando plus 900 in my pocket.
Yeah, no joke. They went off as a 14-point dog. They're winning outright by 10 at the half. Rob, I'll throw it quickly to you, and then I'll get Tony's thoughts here before the second half tips. Looks like the new line is now second half Bucks by 15 or so. That would make them a 5-point favorite for the game versus the 14-point favorite they were, Rob.
Well, we've seen them do it before, right? That Miami game in the bubble, they were absolutely getting trounced, and they closed the game on a 20-0 run. And not only did they cover 5, but they covered, that day was like 9.5, I think, guys, right? Maybe more. So they're capable, but you watch them and you just wonder where the effort is, guys, especially on the defensive end. Reading a little bit prior to the game, Orlando felt like the 3-point line was going to provide them a ton of possibilities here if they could make shots. And true to form, Milwaukee hasn't guarded the 3-point line, and Orlando's taken advantage. They've used quickness. They've used sense of urgency. Milwaukee's shown none of the above. So we'll see what they do in the second half here. But I think we talked a few times about turning the switch on and off is not easy, not easily done. And B, when you're here in front of fake fans, there's nothing to motivate you in the stands. So instead of being game one at home in Milwaukee, where maybe they could ride the crowd noise, Orlando capitalizes on absolute silence in the gym.
And, of course, Orlando is technically the home team in the bubble for what it's worth. But, yeah, it hasn't mattered so far. Tony, this game just tipped off the second half, so now we're live in the third quarter. About a minute in, the Magic just scored, and so did the Bucks. They're now down by 7. You're the in-game guy here. What are you thinking about this one for the second half?
Well, I would be on the under in the second half. Again, I'm spewing these suggestions out without having the numbers in front of me, but that would be my thinking, knowing what I believe the second half number would be. Also, I think, as Rob pointed out, that Milwaukee wasn't guarding this perimeter or the line. This is what they did in the first 3 games. I mean, when they played this team, they didn't guard the line. They said, Orlando, we dare you to make threes. We're gonna basically sag. We dare you to make threes. There wasn't a whole lot of teams worse from the 3-point line than Orlando this year. So that said, I don't expect Orlando to shoot 60% in the second half. And that second quarter that came out with 52 points, 27, 25, whatever that was, I expect to see more of that in the next 2 quarters. And I said yesterday I thought this series would be close because I have very little faith in Milwaukee, and I thought the number was too big. I just didn't have the Rocky Mountains to take Orlando on the points.
Yeah, I mean, Class A Game 1 favorites, as Teddy and I talked about yesterday, historically are good plays. The Clippers struggled a little bit last night. They got the cover. It wasn't necessarily pretty. The Raptors rolled against the Nets. They're a 2 seed. So we'll see what the Lakers do tonight. The Bucks obviously aren't off to Teddy. Yeah, real quick, go ahead.
Well, last night, the favorites across the NHL, NBA, and baseball went 20-1.
Wow.
Not a good day for underdog bettors. It was a similar story in many regards on Sunday, certainly in baseball, where all the favorites came through on Sunday. So we've had back-to-back days that have been basically pure favorite days. And on Twitter last night, I was watching, and everyone's like, unbelievable. All 4 favorites covered in the NBA. It's like, have you ever watched opening weekend NBA playoffs before? You know, it's like the home teams are favored for a reason in round 1, and it's not unusual at all to see home teams go 6-2, 7-1 ATS in these game ones of the first round of the playoffs. I've seen it happen on multiple occasions. So last night, the heavy favorites are the favorites coming in, and many of them late in competitive
Exactly.
games coming in late. The Boston coming in late. Certainly the Nuggets came in very, very late. If you had Denver, like I did, you were pleased to see it. But to think that that's going to affect like today's games or to affect today's point spreads or the markets for these, no, dude. It's just one night where the favorites cover.
Right. And I mean, the lines were already out for all these games yesterday before those games tipped off. We have maybe seen them go up a little bit, but that's not necessary. And you don't know. The public might be grabbing some favorites. But then again, the way the public thinks is that the underdogs are due today, Ski. I mean, who knows how the public thinks sometimes. So one thing, as Teddy said, I mean, 3 of those 4 dogs were winning outright in the second half last night. The Nets were the only ones that were never really in the game in the second half. So,
well, the Nets made that run. They cut the 33-point lead to 8.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, they made the Mets made a big run, but then they had nothing after that.
But the other 3 were winning outright, like late third, even fourth quarter, those other games. So, yeah, 4-0 favorites could have easily been 1-3, 2-2. Ski, I mean, you look at the Lakers tonight. We'll talk about that game more in depth, obviously, but I wonder if this could be a wake-up call for a team like the Lakers where they won't overlook an 8 seed, although Portland a lot different than the Magic, obviously. That line only 6.5 right now. But, I mean, the Bucks were such a big favorite. I think they just came in flat, obviously. I don't think anybody in here thinks the Magic are the better team. Ski, you looking at anything in game here for the rest of the way?
Yeah, it looks like they came in flat, but they woke up in that third quarter. They're only down, 3 points now? That's what I'm seeing. So I would probably expect Milwaukee to probably take over from here. If they're going to play like the Milwaukee that's the number 1 in the Eastern Conference, which is what it looks like they came out in the third quarter, then I'd expect them to probably cruise the rest of the way because Orlando is not really up there with them talent-wise. Yeah,
they've outscored them 9-2 here in the first 2 minutes of the third quarter. They've already put up a 9-2 run here in the first 2 minutes. There's no question they came out strong. I remember there was a college basketball coach about 20 years ago. I heard him speak one time, and he said the key for him was the first 5 minutes of the second half. This is college basketball. Yeah. Or maybe they might have been the first 10, but I think it was the first 5 minutes of the second half, and it's something I've always noticed ever since, over 20 years now. The better team, if they're behind or whatnot, they usually come out strong that first 5 minutes, and that's what the Bucks look like they're doing right now. So, yeah, I mean, the in-game value here was with Milwaukee in hindsight. They're only down by 3 2 minutes in. Now it's 5. But, yeah, it looks like Milwaukee's going to come back and win this one. Whether they cover or not, it's a huge second question. Teddy, I'll tell you what, let's throw to the daytime game, but the other daytime game here. But I, of course, want to get your promo. You and I both are the $2 handicappers, so I want to mention that. I'm at WagerTalk.com. You're at SportsMemo.com. Teddy and I are both red hot. I'm on a 13-2 all sports run. Teddy, what's your current all sports run? I think
I'm 16-6 all sports, 13-2 NBA.
There you go. I knew it was the same. I'm 13-2 the last 9 days baseball, basketball. You're 13-2 NBA. By the way, I've got a $2 Tuesday for the NBA. Teddy's got a $2 Tuesday for baseball. I'm not sure in what world you wouldn't get both of those plays right now. We're both red hot. And they're both baseball and basketball. Once again, WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com. Tony Finn, I know you had a 6-0 sweep in the weekend. You're red hot as well. Rob Vino had numerous 2-0 sweeps last week. Ski Profit, you're hitting like over 70% of the WNBA last time I checked. You were on the Clippers last night, Ski, weren't you?
Well, yeah, that kind of went away a little bit. The past week was kind of rough in WNBA, but I went on a 5-1 run in NBA. And
there you go.
I had the Clippers last night, so I think a lot of us did. Yeah. We all enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was a 7-0 sweep at Wager Talk. And if you had told me that before the game, I would have run, and hedged. But no, it was. I mean, to me, that was the obvious play. As I've talked about a few times now, these Class A Game 1 favorites in the mid-price ranges are always worth a look, I think. Milwaukee did not qualify in that regard. Once again, they were a 14-point favorite. You know, it's a big difference when you're a huge favorite. You just go through the motions, still win. The Clippers kind of went through the motions at times last night. Teddy, I'll throw it over here to you for the other daytime game. It goes in about a half hour. It goes right after this game that's on now. Miami and Indiana. What are you looking at here? The Heat about a 4-1 favorite in the series over the Pacers.
Yeah, so I mean, my point spread is only 2.5. I want to lay Miami. I think Miami's the better team. I like the fact that Miami comes into this game off a series of they only won once in their last 5 games in the bubble. They had that big blown lead against OKC and then the no-show in the finale. But, of course, the one win was the blowout over this Pacers team. They covered the -4 last time out. I don't think it's going to be that easy tonight for Miami. In fact, the fact that I didn't play the Heat tells me I'm rooting for Indiana this evening. I think there will be opportunities to come back with Miami in this series, but my number didn't show it, so I couldn't get to the window, despite the fact that I think the Heat are the better of these two teams and may have some legit advantages today.
Yeah, and it's an excellent point, Teddy. I do that quite often in the NBA playoffs. I'm rooting in every single game. I might not be in action in 3 of the 4 games, but I've got an interest because I wanted to set up something for the next game. Sure. I want either a misleading total where both teams shoot the lights out from 3, or I want, as you said, my preferred play-on team to have a bad game. Rob, how do you look at this series overall? Heat a good-sized favorite. Do you give the Pacers a chance?
Oh, I think it's an ultra-competitive series. I really do. I think when we were on last week, Steve, and you originally started reading series prices, I think Johnny sent them over that day, and you were reading them along as we were doing the show. Miami was, better than 3-1 favorite to win this series, which to me didn't seem correct whatsoever. I mean, Indiana with a fully stocked roster, I think has the ability to play, even though I love the Miami Heat, but Indiana's no slouch. Nate McMillan as a head coach. We've seen Indiana have some big games in the bubble where they came to play against better opponents and won the game. You've got no minutes restriction on Victor Oladipo anymore. TJ Warren's involved here in this game, as is Derek Jones Jr. He'll play as well. But I think if you go through these teams' rosters, 1 through 8, 1 through 9, they're pretty darn close, and it wouldn't surprise me if Indiana pushed this series all the way to 7 games. We'll see what Jimmy Butler and TJ Warren is kind of downplaying their little nastiness towards one another, but I'm sure it'll erupt on the floor, and we'll see maybe a couple of technicals here. I mean, we saw an ejection last night of Kristaps Porzingis that really should have turned that game heavily in favor of the Clippers, and instead the Clippers, they dicked around for the next quarter and a half and barely got a cover. So this will be an interesting series, Steve. And I'm like Teddy. My power ratings made it Miami -2. And while I think Miami's got a definite shot in the Eastern Conference overall, I think Indiana's got a definite shot inside this series.
Yeah, and by the way, the Heat about a -280 favorite. I said 1-4. That was the Celtics price. I was thinking the Celtics are a 1-4 favorite going in against the Sixers, even higher now. Obviously,
no, the Heat are $3 everywhere. The Heat are $3. Yeah. The shortest I've seen of the Heat is $3, and I'm seeing 320s, 330s in a lot of places.
Right, yeah, 1-3, 1-3.5. Yeah, it was -280 last Friday when we did the show, so it's gone up to over -300 now. And the Celtics were the one I was thinking was 1-4. But Tony, one thing Teddy mentioned is that these teams just played. In fact, they played twice in the 8-game bubble. Both were blowouts each way. How much do you factor that in, Tony? The Heat got them the first time by 22 points back on August 10th, last Monday. And then the Pacers got the quick revenge spot in kind of a meaningless game this past, this past Friday in the final day. They beat them by 17 or so. So
I don't put a lot of credence on either one of those games. In truth, I mean, if you look at the first 3 games, 22, I think all things being equal, if everyone's healthy in this game, then I think it is a series. My concern is I can not in any way, shape, or form support Indiana, mostly because of the issues in the paint with Turner, and with if Sabonis was in this game, if Sabonis was playing here, I'm with you guys. I think it's uber competitive series, as long as Turner plays as soft as he did, as he has been, and complains about his neck and his wrist. And I think you're going to see. I just think you're going to see Adebayo just how he'll part the Red Sea or part the Indiana Sea there in the paint, and he'll do what he wants to do. Warren never played this well. Never played. Listen, he may have been an MVP player in there in the bubble, averaging 30, whatever it was. But every time he got against this Miami defense, he wasn't that player. And I think Miami's in the head of this team, and make a long speech right now short is if I'm on somebody, I'm on Miami here. And I think that these two teams play at a pace. Both of them play at a slow pace. They're not going to play up tempo. So the games are supposed to be close. But I'll take Miami.
Yeah, and Ski, the total in this game, the Heat, by the way, about a 4-point favorite. The total right now is around 216. Ski, you see anything in this game, Heat Pacers?
Yeah, well, everybody's going to play. I think the spread was rising because it was, Warren questionable, Oladipo was questionable, Turner was questionable, and now everybody's playing. I think it's maybe just a little bit too high. I would probably go with the Pacers. I mean, I think they can play them tough and maybe keep it close and potentially cover this game. As far as the total, I do think it will be a competitive game, and I think they'll score back and forth. So I think it's a little bit low at 250.
Yeah. Well, anybody else have a thought on the total here, one way or the other?
Problem?
Yeah. See, I don't. I personally didn't see a ton on the total in this game, and I don't think the market's moved it too much, if I'm not mistaken. It went down a little bit, 217.5 maybe or so is what I saw as the opener.
I saw 216 yesterday late. I didn't check again this morning.
Yeah, and I'm seeing 216 across the board now, so it doesn't look like there's been a ton. I did see one sharp offshore book drop a little bit to the 215 range today, and the initial number was a little higher. So there's been a little bit of maybe sharp money, if you want to call it that, on the under. Any thoughts on that, Teddy?
No, I'm already thinking about the next game.
Okay, we'll move to the next one. I could see you were ready to go there. That's why I was asking you. I can see when Teddy gets to the starting gate, I can see that look. I know when he's ready.
This is my you got to come to me look. When I throw the hand up.
The waggle.
No, I was just getting my thoughts for the next one. Sorry.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's throw the next one too, because this is a good game. It's an early evening. By the way, all these games are on TNT tonight. They're all TNT. All 4 of them national TV games. This is the 6:30 Eastern game. The line's been jumping around. I mean, the Thunder were a slight favorite. It's now pick 'em in a lot of spots. I even saw one square book that's got the Rockets as a favorite. So the line's jumping, Teddy. What do you make of that?
Well, Penny's got a lot. Chris has as the Rockets as the favorite now as well. So it's a broader market move than just at the square books. I'm involved on the side in this game. You can get the pick right now at WagerTalk or SportsMemo.com. I want to talk about the total for a minute.
Nice.
Because this is a Rockets team. You remember that first game out of the restart? They played that barn burner with Dallas that flew over the total by like 70 points, that overtime game. Since that time, the Houston Rockets have played one over. That came against Sacramento, who didn't play any defense in the bubble at all and played at a frenetic pace. Every other game they played has stayed under, and most of them have stayed under by double-digit margins. We know what OKC wants to do in this game. They do not want to run and gun with Houston. That's not their game plan. They want to play. They make it a half-court game. That's where they excel. So we have the run and gun team who has been running and gunning, and the other team is not looking to push pace at all, and a total that's sitting pretty high. I mean, it's not ridiculous, but what are we looking at now? In the 225 range?
Yeah, 224.5. It was as high as 227, I believe, at some spots. 224.5, 225 now. So there's been some move to the under.
Sharp money on the under here for a reason. I'll leave it at that.
Rob, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, well, you get Houston without Russell Westbrook, right? So that kind of stops their ability to penetrate to the rim. I mean, they have shooting guards, right? Ben McLemore is going to stand outside the arc and shoot. And Eric Gordon's going to stand outside the arc and shoot. And James Harden's going to take the ball up and it's going to stick to his hands until he either gets fouled or launches a three. So the penetration angle of this game is pretty much dissipated. But on the Oklahoma City side, guys, they like their matchup guard-wise, especially on offense, because they don't think Houston has, PJ Tucker's going to get stuck guarding somebody. Gilgeous-Alexander. It won't be Chris Paul. Dennis Schroeder has had a remarkable time. I think he's hit like 60% of his threes against the Rockets this year because they just don't have enough speed on the floor. So, Houston's going to push. D'Antoni has said as much. And I don't know that Oklahoma City's afraid to push back, to tell you the truth, because they think they have advantages in that backcourt. We'll see how it goes here. I think that, the injury to Luguentz Dort, who would have been used as a defensive stopper not a stopper, but somebody to try and contain Harden, kind of gets offset now that Andre Roberson is back. I mean, he was the Oklahoma City defensive guy to start with in the backcourt. Neither one plays a heck of a lot of offense real well, so I don't think there's that much of a difference. But the Dort injury probably offset by Roberson being back. We'll see if Adams has a huge game in the middle, because there's nothing for Houston to prevent him from having a big game. I kind of like OKC. We'll see when Westbrook gets back as far as a series bet is concerned, because if he doesn't come back, Oklahoma City could win the series. If he does come back, I think they'd have a little more difficult time.
Yeah, and we talked about this last week when the lines came out, but this is the only price that was less than 1-3, and the Rockets are about $1.55 favorite to win the series. Every other series is almost 1-3, -280, 1-3 or higher. And then, as Teddy said, the move's gone from Oklahoma City as a slight 1-point favorite in some spots to now a pick-em 1-point dog. So this is by far the most competitive series on the board. Ski, do you think it is that competitive, or do you think one team has an edge here in this one?
I think it's a pretty competitive series. I kind of want to touch on the total a little bit, just like some things these guys said. When I think about Westbrook will be out for this game. Westbrook is the pace. Westbrook is the one running up and down the floor. Like you said, he's how do I say? He's distributing, but he's the pace for this team. Without Westbrook, I mean, it's just going to be isolation, dribble it out, chunk up a three, like either Rob or Teddy said. And the Thunder, if they didn't have Schroeder, I'd be running to the window to bet the under. But they're comfortable running with pace too, with the three guards. So it makes me kind of uncomfortable. But looking at the Rockets when they play less than 65% win teams without Westbrook, a favorite of less than 13, the under is 6-2. And I think that I think Chris Paul will control the game more than Schroeder. So I do think it will be lower scoring or a slower game. So I'll lean towards the under. And without Westbrook, there's no way that I want to back Houston. Houston is a much better team. I think Westbrook he makes the team, in my opinion, this year. And I would be looking to back the Thunder.
And by the way, before I throw it to you, Tony, the Magic now up by 12, late third quarter. So right as I said that the Bucks, last we spoke of this, the Bucks are down by 3, and I said they're going to win the game. Maybe they'll get the cover. They might not even win anymore. But yeah, it's fascinating to watch. We'll see what happens there. Tony, speaking of Westbrook, what's your take on him? I mean, he's obviously inconsistent at times offensively. I mean, do you think the total should be dropping because he's out?
Yeah, well, here's what I think about Westbrook. Westbrook may be the pace, as mentioned, but I also think he's the attitude on this team. He's the toughness, and if Oklahoma City has, I'm telling you what, right now, I'll put this game. I'll make it pretty simple for me and simple for everyone if you believe me and trust that. And that is that this series comes down to Adams in the middle. Adams in the middle. How tough is Adams? Houston has, listen, Oklahoma City can keep Houston out of the paint. Adams tough, no Westbrook. Does Harden have 4 good games, or does he have 3 good games? And I think that's what we see here. I think we see a game 7, and it comes down to that. Personally, I think that's how even this series is without Westbrook, and that's just me. So I stayed away, really. I stayed away today, at least.
What do you think, Teddy?
Well, I'm really curious, Tony, and I want to ask the panel this, because in trying to handicap the game in my head, what happens with Adams and Noel and the 7-footers that have no one to guard on Houston? Does Houston have to make the adjustment to guard those guys? Or is it the other way around where the Thunder are going to have to play small ball because the Rockets aren't even going to try to guard the centers? I mean, I'm really not sure how that's going to play out. I was curious about what the panel thought.
I think that's a great question. And I don't think Houston – I think we both would agree that OKC can't play small ball with –
Tony, I was asking the panel.
No, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were asking me.
Tony is part of the panel. He can weigh in. Tony, you're the panel. Continue. So, Rob,
I don't think OKC can play small ball with Houston, and they have to basically say, listen, you're going to beat us from the outside. Harden's going to beat them, and he's going to beat them. He's got to beat them from the outside. You can't let Harden go to the rim. You can't. And if he goes to the rim once, Adams better put him on his ass. They've got to be tough in that paint, and that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, there's obviously a different defensive mindset when it comes to playoff basketball. I talked about it earlier this week that NBA games over the last decade or two, and I did some research, was like 3 points less scoring on average in the playoffs. So, I mean, there's more defense, which is often lacking in the regular season more than ever in recent years. What's your take on the total and the pace in this series, with and without Westbrook specifically, I guess?
Well, I think Teddy's matchup question works both ways, right? I mean, PJ Tucker goes to the baseline 3 area quite often and draws the center out. So Adams can't stand in the paint. That trade of Clint Capella was made specifically to make that middle wide open every single possession. And so for Houston, first of all, in my opinion, there's going to be a boatload of fouls on both sides. Harden is going to shoot his free throws because you can't stop him from doing so. And Oklahoma City has shown in the bubble that they're so aggressive, they can draw fouls as well. So I think you'll see a lot of free throws here. But aside from James Harden, listen, if Danwell House, if Eric Gordon, if Ben McLemore, if anybody standing out there chimes in and helps him out a little bit, they're going to get to 120 points because that's what they do. I love these quotes, and Teddy, you're our quote man, but I love these quotes out of Mike D'Antoni about, how James Harden has turned it on defensively because he got 5 deflections in 3 games or whatever. I mean, come on. If that's turning it on defensively, give me a break. He's not going to defend anybody because he can't exert that energy on the defensive end without Russell Westbrook. Otherwise, he's shot on the offensive end, right? So you're playing 5-on-4 offensively. If you're OKC, benefit. You got the whole paint to yourselves, plus you got a man advantage. And on the other side, they just drag you away. And they have so many 3-point shooters that, give me a couple of them and they're going to score. They're very hard to defend.
Yeah, Ski, any closing thoughts on the matchups in this series?
I would say I think it goes both ways as well. I mean, you can see Steven Adams getting offensive rebound after offensive rebound after offensive rebound. Houston Rockets are the second worst rebounding team in the league. So I think you use it. I mean, you put them out there until the Rockets show they're going to hit 40, 50% from 3 for the game. And if that's the case, then maybe you need to take them out. But until then, I think you use them to your advantage.
Yeah, and of course, when you live and die by the 3 like Houston, you're not exactly in great rebounding position sometimes. So not a surprise there. And, my final takes on this game is I keep talking about we didn't get the NCAA tournament this year. But the key to the NCAA tournament is teams that are hot or cold from 3. And the Rockets live and die by the 3 more than anybody in recent history in the NBA. And they can beat anybody when they're on, but they can also have difficulty. Of course, the difference here is it's a 7-game series versus a one-and-done in the NCAA tournament when anybody can get hot for a game and pull that upset. Let's go around the horn here. We got a little time here before we get to the nightcap. Once again, I'll remind everybody that it is $2 Tuesday, both WagerTalk and Sportsmemo. And it just happens to be I'm the $2 handicapper with my NBA best bet at WagerTalk. Teddy Covers, who's also red hot, is the MLB handicapper at sportsmemo.com. I'm on a 13-2 all sports run the last 9 days, baseball and basketball. Teddy is on a 13-2 run in the NBA. He's red hot in baseball and basketball combined as well. Once again, $2 Tuesday. My NBA best bet is available right now at wagertalk.com for $2. Teddy's baseball best bet, a strong 5%er, by the way, is at Sportsmemo. That's normally $40, and it's $2 at sportsmemo.com today. Rob, I'll throw it over to you, too. What do you got going on here for Tuesday at wagertalk.com?
Yeah, I'm in action, Steve, in both sports. A pair of NBA plays tonight, and also 4 out of Major League Baseball, and a couple of underdogs that I thought were worth being proactive with. So a bunch of plays right now, half a dozen to be exact, 2 NBA, 4 MLB. As I've said numerous times, it's been a great all sports 2020. One of the few things that's been good about 2020 is the plays. And they've almost hit 60% for the year. I think it's around 59.7. But yeah, we're in there tonight trying to knock them out of the park.
Yeah, and Tony, I said I've been red hot. Teddy's been red hot. Rob's had a great season overall. Here's your numbers right now, if I'm not mistaken. 12-1 all sports run, 37-19 now. So yeah, you're as hot, if not hotter, than all of us at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, my first thought this morning was, you know what? Let me just pass for like 2 or 3 days and
Exactly.
wait for the regression to the mean come, and then I'll be the hot one, right? Because I'm invested. It's amazing. I looked at everybody, you guys, this morning, and I said, "Well, we got a problem. Houston, we have a problem. These guys are damn good."
So Tony, you could go 4-1 tonight. 80% of you would lower your win percentage on that 12-1.
Yeah.
But that also shows why, as we said, long-term win percentage is kind of silly. It's units won.
I'm going to buy everybody and just start fading everybody because it's time. It's time to start fading.
37-19 run. You could have said that a week ago. You would have lost more money.
It's true. Well, I can do that. I can.
Ski. What do you got going on for Wednesday night? Or what today? Yeah, Tuesday night, whatever the hell night it is. The only thing, by the way, guys, the only thing that's got me any closer to knowing what day of the week is sports. So luckily we're doing this show because when we don't do NBA tip-off, I know it's either Saturday or Sunday. I've got a 50-50 chance of getting the day right when we're not doing the show. Ski, what do you got for Tuesday night and Wednesday if you got anything posted?
Yeah, I was going to say I don't have anything for Wednesday night yet. I haven't gotten there, but I do have a best bet up for tonight and in the NBA. I have 2 plays up. But I have a best bet up, and I have 1 play in the WNBA. So look to keep my hot streak in NBA.
Hey, Ski, let me ask you. You do a WNBA. We don't really dabble with it as much at all. You're kind of our WNBA expert. You're the ladies' man, as I like to say. But have you seen much of a difference so far? I know you asked you last week. You were kind of similar to the way you're handicapping the NBA. Has anything changed there with the WNBA, the approach versus the NBA?
Yes. WNBA is not used to playing these many games back to back. They're usually a lot more rest in between games, and it's kind of really affecting the play and affecting the players. And I want to say that as the week goes on, we're seeing like way more tired legs, less shots going in, probably more.
So I was going to ask you now, are you seeing the tired legs affect the scoring then? That was my next question, because obviously the first thought is they don't make the long shots, tired legs, you're hitting the front of the rim. But then I've always said also, tired legs can lead to less defense as well. So you're seeing maybe a little bit more under because of it.
Yeah, I think as the week goes on, as they play more games throughout the week before they get a rest, it'll be more unders at the end.
You know what's interesting about that, and once again, I don't dabble with the WNBA, but from my take on women's basketball, one thing I don't like about women's basketball is that it's below the rim. So that would kind of make sense that they rely more on jump shots and outside shots would be my initial thought on that. So I think that's great information. Once again, this is NBA tip-off, but WNBA is also a professional pro basketball league, and there's money to be made there. And Ski Profit, I know you said you cooled off a bit, but I want to remind people you started off, I believe, 11-4. So you had a nice feel for the WNBA, and those comments right there tell me that you've got a pretty good feel for it still, and you're making the adjustments. Guys, let's go to this nightcap. Once again, WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com, $2 Tuesday for myself and Teddy, and then Rob, Tony, and Ski got strong best bets as well for multiple sports at WagerTalk.com. Yeah, Teddy.
Just real quick, we have some comments and some questions I wanted to throw in real quick from the panel. They were asking, Michael Wimberly asked, is Schroeder going to be playing tonight? He is supposed to play this evening for OKC. Haven't seen him listed on any injury report. He was already got back in the bubble for their last finale for the bubble, the seeding game finale. There was also a question, Jimmy Salamanca.
Yeah, I was just going to say. Yeah, I think we kind of
Heat versus Pacers. Yes,
we
or
kind
no?
of had no opinion on that one, didn't we, Teddy? I mean, I was going to say across the board.
I don't want an over in that game, so I have to lean under. But it's not anything that's strong. I don't know if anyone else has opinion on that either.
Yeah, I have an opinion.
Go ahead, Ski.
I'll just shoot you a stat. Heat arrested Heat team playing good teams. Win percentage greater than 55. They're less than a 4-point favorite. Total between 210 and 217. The over is 12-0. Average total 213.2, going over by 11.92 points per game.
Yeah, this one, as I said earlier, really hasn't moved much. To what was it, the 216.5 range? It's now 216. I did see one book that dropped a little bit more than that. So if you're looking at a little bit of sharp lean, maybe I'd say it's on the under here, but not enough where it really jumped out at me as far as the board lighting up or anything. And Ted, you said Schroeder is expected to play once again for the Thunder to answer Michael, right? You were saying he's listed as probable tonight, correct?
Yeah. And there was a question from Samuel McKinney as well. For the 4 major sports, what sites do you like to use to track the percentage of total bets versus percentage of money bet? There are so many things that you can use for your handicapping. I consider that information pretty much static. I pay no attention to it, and I couldn't tell you what site you would look at. Does any of you guys take that stuff seriously?
You know, it's interesting. On the show yesterday, I did the baseball show yesterday. I hosted the baseball show yesterday on First Pitch on Monday, and Dave Kochen, I thought, had an interesting point he brought up about the Astros are no longer a public team, even though being so dominant for years because everyone dislikes them, and that they're maybe flying a little bit under the radar. And he said that, and as he did that, I looked it up at one site. I don't even remember where I pulled it up, but more than 52% of the money was on the Rockies as a good plus money underdog. So the only time, Teddy, I like to look at that is maybe the NFL where more than 60% is on a dog, or any sport in general, because the public normally plays favorites in the overs. So the only time I kind of like to look at that contrarian public angle is if they're loaded up on an underdog. That's a red flag for me. It's a filter I might use. It's not an automatic play. But we did talk about that briefly yesterday in baseball. And Dave Kochen said the same thing. He doesn't use a lot of the public consensus stuff unless maybe they load up on a dog. But, yeah, we actually did talk about that yesterday. That's archived, on YouTube. First Pitch, Monday edition, August 17th. It was just interesting. We talked about the Astros are kind of becoming a non-public team, and that we might get some line value because of that. But, yeah, overall, Teddy, I agree with you. I don't think there's a lot to be gained from that.
That said, he asked for a website. I mean, any of you guys, is there a site that you would go to that have that information?
I don't give that stuff a second
glanced.
thought, guys. I mean, I thought you were going to use the word useless, Teddy. I mean, I don't find any
I
gain.
call static, though, as useless, because
I don't find any gain by looking at those numbers. To tell you the truth, I don't know. A, I can't tell you how accurate those numbers are. B, I can't tell you, where that money's come from. And I know that people like to say, oh, well, look, the line's moving up, but there's less money bet on the team where the line's going up. So that means all the sharps are on that. And, to me, it's just a bunch of – it's good promotional stuff, I guess, if you want to sit here and sound smart. And I'm on that side, and I'm against the public and all this other nonsense that we hear. But to me, guys, it's just there's 1,000 other things I'd use handicapping a game before I use that.
Yeah, Ski, Tony, any final thoughts on that one? Is it something that factors into your Ski?
Nah, I mean, I may glance at it, but I'm not running to the window just because I saw a number on that screen. So I think they summed it up pretty good.
Yeah, and Tony, just quickly, I mean, and the line, I was talking more about public because I do use that occasionally, is why I brought that up. But what this question was specifically, like Teddy said, is more about percentage of bets versus percentage of money. And the theory there for people that don't understand is that the sharp money is betting heavy, one bet 5,000, whereas the square public money is betting $50 a game. So it would take 100 public bets to equal one sharp bet. So when you see 90% of the money on one team, but 90% of the bets on another, that means the big single bets are coming on one side, the small bets are the other side, and that can be a sharp square divide in some people's mind. Do you give that any credit?
Rob said he said what I would fall into, and that would be I don't trust anybody to give out the right information. And for the most part, sharp money can be hidden. So it's more Teddy. Listen, Teddy knows how to find out where the sharp money is. We know how to, if we want to dig and find out where the sharp money is, it takes a little work. You can't just look at a screen and say, oh, there's the sharp money. And it's just not, it doesn't work that way. I wish it did. I wish things worked that way. I wish my marriage worked that way, but it doesn't work that way.
Well, and the final thought I'll give on that is the sharp money wins over 300, 500 games. It has an edge, but it doesn't win every day. It has a 40, 45% chance of losing every day, just like it has a 55% chance of winning. And then on top of that, if it's moving the line because it's the right side, you no longer have the value anymore. It's moved by a half a point or a point. That all of a sudden you've lost that 5% edge. So you don't want to be chasing sharp money. That's another thing we'll point out. But let's get to this last game here. Ski, I'm going to start with you because this is your hell yes LA Lakers, the number one seed, your favorite team, one of the favorites to win the West, one of the favorites to win the whole thing, maybe the favorite after the Bucks go down today and the Clippers look mediocre last night. But what are your thoughts, Ski? I'll start with you. This line was 5.5, 6 yesterday. It's now up to 6.5. Total's risen as well. It's about 233.5 now.
You mean the Lakers are not underdogs?
Are they in their own minds? That's the question.
Yeah, man. I think the line is reflective of what – I mean, when I look at the Blazers, they played how many tough games in a row? All of the games for them have been playoff games. They had to play an extra play-in game. They've got to be tired. CJ's playing with a broken back. But when I look at this game single-handedly, Blazers, if they're going to have anything, I like to think it's early. They're a team that usually comes out in that first quarter and jumps on you, and maybe even for the first half, and it kind of lets up. And if people are worried about the Lakers being rusty, I mean, you can see it in that first quarter and see them do something like the Bucks here and come alive in the third quarter. But if I'm playing it, I'm laying it with the Lakers. And as far as the total, I probably would expect points because I don't think the Lakers can stop. I mean, I expect the Lakers to trap Damian Lillard, but as far as just guarding him straight up, they can't guard Lillard really. Don't really have too many. We were missing Avery Bradley, we're missing Rondo, we're missing players who could guard him, and they don't have a wing player to guard LeBron. And Anthony Davis should have a great day.
Yeah, Tony, I mean, there's been some heavy money on the overs, 228.5. It's now 233.5. Biggest move we've seen on really a sider total so far in this first game one scenarios.
I had to give it some credence to it. I mean, I think there's some matchup issues that make sense to play the over here. But if you look at it, not if you're a bottom line number, not if you believe that if you look at the Lakers percentage or field goal percentage efficiency is not very good. Here's the deal with this team, and I'll make it short. Typically, well, I'm a numbers guy in most ways, but in this game, there's something about LeBron James. There's something about him knowing what to do in certain situations, and he's done it for years and years. And I believe wholeheartedly he knows he has to do it here in this series. There's a small margin of error for this Lakers team, meaning that Davis and LeBron have to get their points because they're going to have some matchup issues with this Portland team on the perimeter. That's just my take.
Yeah, Rob, what's your take here? The line's gone from 5.5, 6 up to 6.5, but as I said, a big move on the total, 228.5 and now 233.5. Definitely a big jump there.
Yeah, it was a big jump. I guess it was to be expected, Steve. I mean, again, I'll go back to what I said last week about the Portland Trailblazers. I just use a starting point of they're going to get to 115 and the other side's going to get to 115. And if you show me an opening total of 228.5, I'm going to bet over because 115 and 115 equals 230. And then we'll go from there. In this case, I think Ski and Tony both made great points about the matchup disadvantages for both sides. And the matchup disadvantages all work to the advantage of the offensive player. They can't stop Damian Lillard. I don't know how hard they'll try to stop Damian Lillard. This might be a case where let him have his. We'll try and, contain the rest to put the fire out from around the perimeter. But C.J. McCollum, even with his broken back, had 29 the other night. You don't get Zach Collins here for Portland, but I don't know how big of a deal that really is. Whiteside's back in the lineup now, and certainly Gabriel's a young player, and it's a playoff game, so will he have any butterflies? But Gabriel played pretty well. Gary Trent Jr., we've talked about a zillion times, stepping up offensively. I don't think the Lakers, the quotes are nice. Once again, the respect factor that they're showing for the Portland Trailblazers. But I don't think in his true heart, LeBron James fears the Portland Trailblazers. I think he feels like I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get 40 myself. Davis could get 40 himself. As much as Nurkic has brought to the offensive end of the Trailblazers, certainly hasn't brought anything defensively. So again, to me, Portland games are all the same at this point until they're lined at 239, 240. I think you play Portland over, and if you lose, but you're going to win more than you lose.
Yeah, by the way, some player props from the Westgate, and these have probably risen a bit because these are kind of near the opening numbers, but total points for Lillard tonight, 35.5, McCollum, 22.5, LeBron, 29.5, Davis also 29.5. Teddy, what are your thoughts on this game and that move to the over as well?
So I did not get involved in the game. If I was going to get in, I really mixed feelings about the side, and I have really mixed feelings about the total. So I'm not necessarily that close to getting involved in the game. The Lakers won twice in the bubble, okay? And neither one they won 3 times. They had the overtime win over the Clips, and they had that game where they stole a cover late against Utah, and the game where they beat the Nuggets by 3. All right, it's not like we've seen LA playing playoff-level basketball the last couple of weeks. We haven't. Meanwhile, the Blazers obviously have been playing playoff-level basketball. Advantage Portland, in theory. At the same time, it's a Blazers team that, they just played a Grizzlies squad that, you grade out the personnel. It was probably more than a 6-point difference. They played a Nets team that, we saw what maybe the Nets really are in the game against the Raptors yesterday. They got, right teams at right time. They were favored in every game since a loss to Houston back on August 4th. I think Portland is a little bit overrated. And the fact that Dame, if you watch the Grizzlies game closely, Lillard was completely gassed. It was all 3-point shots. He was not penetrating. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Lakers turn it up a notch and win this game by margin. But I need to see LA do that before I can bet them to do that, because they haven't done it once since getting back into the bubble.
Yeah, and Teddy, I know you well enough because I have a feeling I know who you're rooting for tonight and what you want to see. So maybe it sets up a play in game 2 is the bigger picture. By the way, mid-major Matt, who did host the MLB First Pitch today and appeared with me yesterday on it, the lifelong Philadelphia fan in numerous regards. He's asking for Carmelo props. I do see his over-under at around 14.5, 15 for total points for Carmelo Anthony for the Blazers tonight. You guys, we're kind of at the final stop here, but I do want to quickly touch on tomorrow's one early game before we get on the air tomorrow. If you got any thoughts, we'll throw it out. If not, not a problem. Ski, I'll start with you. Anything jump out with you tomorrow? The Raptors Nets. That's the early game at 1:30 Eastern before we come on. We'll be on right after the half, basically. I'm seeing Toronto right now as an 11-point favorite, and of course they won by a huge margin yesterday. As Teddy said, they cut the lead from 30-some down to 8. The Nets did, but then they ended up getting blown out still. What are you looking at here in this one, Ski, tomorrow?
You can come back to me maybe on this one. I was still, I get defensive about my Lakers.
That's right. I'll tell you what, Ski, give me your final thought. Give me your final thought to the Lakers, and I'll go around the horn real quick, and I'll hit you back up then. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that popped in my mind is I got to challenge Teddy a little bit. I heard Teddy say before, maybe yesterday, that every game that you've seen in the bubble, you throw it out. And then he says today that the Lakers haven't looked good in the bubble. I think you throw those games out because they didn't matter for them. And LeBron, in an interview, he said, they asked on a level scale of 1 to 10, where is the team at as far as readiness for playoffs? He said they're not close, and mentally they're not even thinking about it. They're not there mentally. But when the playoffs come, they will be, and when they know who their opponent is, they'll lock in on them. So I think we watch out for the Lakers tonight.
Yeah, and I think, the big takeaway, obviously, is with the bubble is, do you just flip a switch and turn it on? Do you become the number 1 seed, or do you need some games to get back into it? And then, of course, the counter to that is the Blazers are in excellent current form, but do they have anything left in the tank? Are they letting down a bit because they made it in? Do they, have that sigh of relief knowing it's a 7-game series? And we'll find out. This could be a good one to keep an in-game live betting angle on. I know, Tony, you love the in-game bet. And I mean, as far as tomorrow's game, Tony, anything jump out to you about that early game, Nets and Raptors? I mean, the big question is, can the Nets make this series competitive after getting blown out yesterday? By the way, it was a little bit of a disparity from the three-point and free throw line than that result yesterday, but that's what you normally see in a 30-point blowout, though.
Yeah, the Nets are the Raptors are a tough matchup for the Nets. They really are. This Raptors team is long, they're lean, they're fast, they're aggressive, they're relentless. Not that the Nets aren't capable, but the Nets need to get points from Liverpool. They just need points from one area where you got 8-9 players on this other side of the court, or the other side of the announcers that are deep and they don't have to depend. This Van Fleet is just. Is it just me, or I watch him play and I think he's a free agent this year. He's become the smartest. A smart little player. He's not a guy you're going to see on ESPN highlights, or you hear somebody talk about being a big time player. But I just am so impressed with the Raptors and Nurse and what he does with this team and what he's done this year in this hangover. I like the Raptors moving forward, and I think they can go as far as they want.
Rob, last 30 seconds here. So any quick thoughts on Raptors Nets?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about the matchups yesterday, and then Tony just hit on it as well. For the Nets, it's not just a size thing, but it's the fact that Toronto is a fast break team. It's the fact that Toronto gets points off turnovers. It's the fact that Toronto shoots threes. All the things the Nets can't have. They can't beat Toronto at what they do best. And so since we all feel like Toronto, there's no let up in them, it'd be hard to play against them, although there's always a game where you take off a little bit and, you can sneak in. 11's a big number. You could sneak in underneath. Teddy mentioned earlier how they cut a 33-point lead down to 8. I haven't done enough looking into it yet to go ahead and say something definitive. But right now, Toronto just looks like one of those teams on a mission.
Teddy, adjusted price, Raptors 1-100, Nets 40-1. Any interest in the Nets bouncing back in game 2?
I'm still thinking about the game. I was one of those guys that went 2-1 yesterday, and my winning percentage went down, and I'll take that.
There we go.
But the loser was the Nets, and the Nets were as wrong could be. And when they were making that big run, I'm like, yeah, boy, we're gonna steal it. I thought, but it came and went. So I was dead wrong in game 1, and when I'm dead wrong in game 1, I'm not likely to get involved in game 2. Certainly something that if I do get involved in game 2, it's going to be late as opposed to early. So we're going to think about it. right now I got nothing.
Ski, any thoughts on this one as we wrap it up?
I used majority of my time already, so I'll say I think Toronto. Not very happy with Brooklyn scoring as easily as they did, with them being such a great defensive team. I'll probably lean.
Gotcha. And 226.5 is the total right there. And that game, of course, tips off tomorrow on Wednesday at 1:30 Eastern. So look, Ski, I did get a Wednesday pick out of you anyway, even though it's only Tuesday. Once again, it is Tuesday. We'll be back tomorrow on Wednesday. Our normal time, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific for NBA tip-off. And once again, it is $2 Tuesday at both WagerTalk and SportsMemo.com. It's quite simple. You get my NBA best bet for $2 at WagerTalk. You get Teddy's baseball 5%, or normally $40 for just $2 at SportsMemo.com. And, of course, Rob, Tony, and Ski as well at WagerTalk.com. So, once again, best bets at WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com. And we are back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, live on Wednesday for NBA tip-off. Thanks, guys. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.